Good morning, everybody. We are so excited to have all of you join us on this freezing January morning. It's much better to be indoors than outside, right?
Yes. It's appropriate. We're going to be talking about motivation today. Good morning.
So before we kick things off, we do want to share a disclaimer with everybody. This session is being recorded so that those that missed it can come back and catch up on all of the information and questions from today. So by participating in this, you consent to being recorded. And if you prefer not to be recorded, we ask that you leave the line and you can catch the replay later. And then one other housekeeping thing before we turn it over here. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat as we go, and I'll be keeping tabs on the chat while Betsy kicks us off talking here. And then we will do a Q&A and chat at the end. We can invite all of you to come off of Zoom after the presentation portion of this. So with that, just want to introduce myself, and I'm going to kick it over to Betsy. For any of you that do not know me, my name is Sarah, RRCA certified running coach and a personal trainer on the advisory committee with the Steel City Advisory Committee. So excited to be with you guys today. And I am going to kick it over to Betsy to start the conversation this morning.
So yeah, thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everybody. My name's Betsy. I also am an RRCA certified coach with the Steel City Roadrunners and on the advisory committee with Sarah. And we have been doing these in past years live at the garage. And obviously this year, that format isn't working out for us. So we're going to give this a try today. And hopefully we can pass on some good information and answer some of your training questions. But first, when I like to start all of this, I kind of like to find out, and I guess without the video and mute and people on mute, it's going to be hard to tell who are first timers and what you're training for. And I see a few old faces and some new faces, although I don't see very many faces at all right now. So I'm going to assume that most of you are either first time full or half marathon trainers, or maybe you've done it a few times before and you just want to sort of buff up your training tips and just join in and maybe just get some motivation this morning too, which we're all kind of lacking at this point. So 3 topics this morning. We were going to touch briefly on just motivation. In 2 weeks, we do plan to go more in depth on how to stay motivated as your runs are getting longer, particularly if you're marathon training. When you're training for a virtual race, it really is hard to get yourself out there without the group, support that we typically have on Saturday mornings, especially when this weather is so cold the way it is. But we will touch just a little bit on that first of all, and then we're going to head into keeping flexibility in your training plan, because when the weather throws curveballs at us, we definitely need to keep some flexibility in our plan, but still be confident that we're getting our training in. And then last, we'll just kind of briefly hit on dressing for this great weather that we've been having. If you've probably all figured it out by now, but if you haven't, we'll just kind of go over the basic layering techniques for staying warm in this kind of weather. So to motivation, what I like to kind of talk to my runners about early on is just kind of decide in your mind what it is that's motivating you from the start. What is it that is made you decide you want to train for your marathon or your half marathon, and put that someplace where you can kind of keep referring to it and reminding yourself of why you decided to start this crazy business in the first place. Because as we go along, miles get longer, runs get longer, we don't have group motivation, you're going to need to keep referring back to that just to keep yourself getting out there to run. And sometimes that just means saying, I'm just going to go out for 1 mile and then hopefully end up doing more than one. But some things you can try to do is right at this stage of the game, rely on friends for support, through your social media, or even if you're allowing yourself to run with 1 or 2 consistent running buddies, And probably the most important thing you can do right now is make sure you're keeping a journal. I know a lot of people do, online support groups like Strava, and that's great because you keep motivating each other online and seeing what each other's doing, and that helps get you out there too. I personally like to keep just a written, handwritten, old-fashioned running log journal as I go along through the week, and that way I can look back on it and see my comments and see the progress that I've made over time, because it's not going to be a day-to-day thing. It's definitely going to be week to week, even month to month. But if you go back and look, you will see your progress happening, and that can be very motivating for you. Add a little variety to your runs when you're out there. Pick up the pace for a little bit, drop it back a little bit, add some walking if you feel like it. Give yourself a break right now with COVID and virtual racing and training. It's okay just to give yourself a break and let the day be what it is for you for that run. And that will help keep your motivation up, unless if you keep trying to pressure yourself to get this done the way you want to get it done, if everything was perfect, you're going to get frustrated. And the other thing is too, if you feel you're getting tired in this really cold weather, our bodies are working really hard. Our hearts are working very hard to supply our muscles. You're going to get tired. Take an extra rest day if you need it. It's important to rest. It's probably one of the most important training tools that we have. So leading on from there, in this kind of situation, it's really important to have flexibility in your training plan. Things like the weather, which we're experiencing, icy road conditions, snow. We never know what it's going to be when we get up in the morning. Illness, hopefully not the big one that's happening everywhere. But cold or whatever. Not much travel happening these days, but if you are needing to travel, that can interrupt your training plan, your job, family commitments, just sort of life in general. And so going back, if the weather is messing up your run, try to switch a bad weather day for a cross training day and do something indoors if you can, if you have an indoor gym or you have equipment, or even if you're just able to walk rather than run, make it sort of a cross train or even a full rest day. Sometimes I just say, okay, well, it's telling me to stay home and rest today, and I'm happy to do that. Illness, you have to insert easy days or complete rest days until you feel better. You really won't lose a lot of fitness. And if you have rested through, say, a 3 or 4 day head cold, you actually might feel stronger and more rested when you go back out, and that will surprise you, that you actually feel pretty good. And I guess that's what the rest will do for you. And as far as all of the other travel, job, life stuff that gets in the way, I like to break the priority of the runs down into 3 categories. The very most important run of the week is your long run, typically our Saturday run. And I sort of call this run A. That's the highest priority run that you want to make sure you get in. Your in-between tempo runs, track workouts, hill repeats, anything like that you're doing would be your B priority runs. And short runs, short runs being like hill repeats, track workouts. Tempo runs are like your midweek mileage, 4, 5, 6 mile runs. And the C priority would be the short runs. And if you have to knock any of those out, knock out your C runs first. Those would be the ones you would skip on any given week. And try not to do 2 hard days in a row. If you do miss a run or 2, thinking you can make up your miles or a workout, because recovery after a hard run is very essential for staying injury-free throughout your marathon or half marathon training cycle. If you do have to miss an entire week and you do miss your long run, we can help you alter your training plan. If you email a coach at Steel City, Sarah, maybe you can clarify the email for that at the end, just to make sure we have it right. But we can help you pick up, insert that long run and get those miles made up over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks of your training plan. It is possible to make up a long run if you miss one and not get too off course. I've done it many times. I've helped runners do it, and it's very easy to do, and you can be successful with that. So please be jotting down questions, or I've seen a couple come through here, which we'll do at the end. I found it's easiest because we only have about a half an hour to kind of get through everything and then answer questions at the end. So that's kind of how to keep flexibility in your training plans. Dressing for winter training. 3 layers are what most people recommend. Heavyweight lined running tights with wind resistance are very worth the investment on days like today. The 3 layers, the base layer are very tight against your skin, that is a wicking material, like the tech fabrics or even a smart wool long underwear. And that helps bring the moisture away from your skin and out into your outer layers. Then your mid layer is your warmth layer, something like fleece or an insulated vest of something of that sort. And your outer layer will be a breather, but waterproof, windproof to protect yourself against the elements. So a base layer that's tight to your skin and is moisture wicking, a mid layer for warmth, and an outer layer for weather protection. Those are kind of the 3 basic things that will help you get through these winter runs. And the insulated tights. I have a pair that actually have wind resistant panels on the front of the legs, which helps keep your quad muscles warm when you're running into the wind. That's always so much fun, running into the wind in January and February. Completely cover your ears, hat or headband. Mittens are warmer than gloves. You probably all know that. I use glove liners and or hand warmers on really bitter cold days. Covering your neck with a gaiter, a fleece, or a soft fabric. And we're actually doing a lot of that these days just by virtue of needing to mask up when we see or meet other runners along the way, and we pull up that gaiter or your face mask. I found my face mask to be a great chin warmer this winter. I assume probably you guys have too. But if your face is out in the sun, which we haven't seen much of recently, skin protection is really important in the wintertime, just like the summer. You want to make sure I use sunscreen. It's always a good idea. And maybe you can buy a oil, so coating, or even Vaseline, but to help keep your skin from drying out while you're out running in the cold, especially in the wind. On sunny days, sunglasses are very important, especially now that we have snow on the ground and it's very bright. Socks, I wear smart wool socks in the winter that come up over my ankles so that they stay covered. And they help keep your feet dry and warmer. Toe warmers on bitter cold days. I had some in last week when it was in the single digits. Toe warmers in your running shoes. You do feel them a little bit, but they really help me. And I don't know that too many people run when it's actually icy. I won't do that, but there are little traction devices you can buy to slip onto your running shoes. I think Yak Tracks, Sarah, is one type of thing. So that's basically the way to dress for your long winter training runs. And as you get warmed up, you can delayer, pull things off. Your outer wind and waterproof layer can be tied around your waist or stuffed into a little backpack. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about hydration, but I'm going to touch on that briefly, especially in this really, really cold, dry weather. It's extremely important to stay hydrated before you run, while you're running, and after you run, because we're losing so much moisture into this dry, cold air as we're breathing, as we're out running. So hydration is always really important. Sarah, do you have some tidbits you want to add to all of this? I know I've gone through it very quickly. Hopefully you've been jotting things down, but we can also post.
I don't know that I have anything to add. I've been keeping up with all of the chat comments, and you guys have a lot of great comments and questions in there. So I think maybe this would be a good time to open it up to the chat. What do you think, Betsy?
I agree, because we have about 15 minutes or so, and I find usually questions can take some time, and we want to make sure we have enough time to answer it.
So let's start with one of the more straightforward ones. Can you explain Strava in a little bit more detail?
I cannot, because I don't use it.
Okay, so
I'm old school because I'm an older runner, and Like I said, I write in my journal and I enjoy doing that. I think I have a Strava account because every now and then it pops up that somebody's following me on Strava, but I don't use it. So
Okay. Yeah, no,
sorry.
totally. It's all good. So it is a website basically that I can't think of the word, pulls together data from different sources. So if you connect your watch to Strava, it will show you all of your run data on the website, and it's a different way of visually looking at data. Like Betsy mentioned earlier, it's also a way to socially connect with other people because you can see where they're running and how they're doing. And then there's Strava segments, which basically provide a little challenge to yourself to see if you can run certain segments faster whenever you go back and repeat those different segments. So there's some fun features with it. I know that they recently changed it though, because the majority of their features were originally free, and now they've put a paywall up around some of that. So I don't know current state what the free features are versus what's paid, but if anybody else uses Strava, please feel free to jump in and share any other benefits or reasons why you use Strava. And then I also wanted to give Matthew the opportunity, if you wanted to come off mute and share any tips. Running in the cold is his favorite kind of weather. He loves cold weather. So if you have any tips to share, please jump in.
Yes, please do.
And give them as well. And then Lisa, your question about training after missing a couple of weeks after surgery. Please reach out to one of us individually after this. There are so many factors that play into how you would train with your remaining time left that is best to address on a case-by-case basis instead of giving general information. So please feel free to reach out either via email or directly to Betsy or I after this.
Yeah, I was sorry to see you'd fallen and broken your wrist, Lisa. So.
And then Christine had a great comment. It's not a great comment, but it's a great thing to talk about. So she had commented that with, since we put our group runs on pause, that it's difficult to have that motivation to go out and train for a full marathon solo. So I thought it might be good to discuss a little bit about the mental aspects of tackling training solo, or how we deal with that mental change when we had this plan and now because of things that are outside of our control, it's changing the way that we need to come in and look at that and plan and maybe change the way we approach our training until we can get back to whatever our new normal is going to be. Betsy, do you want to start on this one if you have anything to share?
Just about training solo, you mean?
Yeah, or changing goals because of.
Yeah, I mean, I know last spring when this was all, I mean, it's still very scary and we're still in it almost a year later. I know last spring what worked for me, I did end up running the virtual full Pittsburgh Marathon because I was halfway through training when COVID began and everything shut down, and I decided just to polish it off. And I have to say it was very hard. So I turned my solo runs into just letting them be whatever they are on that day. I took away the pressure. I took away any time goals, any, things like that put pressure on me. I just decided when I was going out for my run, I was just going to let it be whatever it was for that day. And most days, I will say, surprisingly, with that attitude, I ended up running farther and better than I thought I would. So that kind of worked for me, just releasing all the pressure, heading out the door or meeting one or two friends in a safe way to run together, particularly for the long miles. And that's what I did. I had one or two people, and they were the only people I ever saw to run with. And we would stay, like on opposite sides of the bridge, that kind of thing, just for safety. But that's kind of what worked for me. And I enjoyed, if I wanted to walk and I felt like walking for a little while, I would just stop and walk, or I'd hike a hill instead of trying to run the hill. And that was very helpful for me, just to release myself of all the pressure and just enjoy running for the roots of the joy of running from way back when I started in the late 1970s. We used to run just for the fun of going out and running. And I brought that all back, which really helped me. So.
I agree. And just to add to that, I think also sometimes we are our own stumbling blocks in that we have these goals, and when circumstances change, we hold on to those goals, even if it's something that maybe we should reevaluate, because it will make it easier on us if we temporarily change to a different way of training. So, just for example, in this circumstance, if your goal was marathon training, but you really enjoy that connection and the group runs, and that's where you get all your motivation to help you stick to the training, maybe this is a time where you step back to the half marathon and pick a different type of goal. And maybe, you incorporate some different types of training runs or different routes or different ways to challenge yourself instead of the full marathon, and keep that for when we can come back to group runs, and it's a better way. Yeah, changing your goal doesn't mean defeat. It's just, it makes it easier on yourself in the end when it's something that you feel is manageable,
Right.
versus dragging yourself out the door and forcing yourself to do things sometimes. So
Exactly. I think, Sarah, you and I have said the same thing in a couple of different ways. And yeah, it's just making this fun, trying to keep it fun, trying to keep it just something that you enjoy doing, rather than a drudgery and a job trying to get out. If it isn't working for you that day, it's not working for you that day. And running is the kind of sport that's with you hopefully for a lifetime, so it doesn't all have to be done right now. So if this is the time when it's just you just don't want to do it solo, or it's just not helping, readjust and pick another way to keep yourself motivated and keep yourself active. So hopefully that helps, Christine. I think it was your question. Yeah.
So Matthew gave us some of his tips in the chat. He is near a sleeping child and didn't want to wake them. So thank you so much for typing these into the chat. Just so that everybody sees that his tips about running in the cold is dressing in layers and thinking that the temperature is 15 degrees warmer than it actually is, which is a great tip, because once you warm up, if you dressed for 0 when it's feeling like 15, you are going to overheat and be trying to take things off on the road. So that's a fantastic tip. I know, I do that all the time. I hate being cold.
I don't like being cold. But you're right, Matthew. That's exactly what most people recommend.
Yeah, for sure.
I personally like to be hot.
There was a question on here about the risk of running with others. And Betsy, I don't know if you have anything on this. I don't want to give any kind of false information. I know there's so much research out there. I am not currently up on the latest recommendations about being with others. Betsy, anything?
Yeah, I don't know. From the beginning, and they kept saying socially distance and wear a mask. I chose 2 running friends that I've been training with for many years, actually. And they are the only 2 people that I have run with. Not every week, not all the time. If one had to go, they both work from home, and we absolutely would practice distancing. We try to run usually at North Park, where we could stay apart, maybe across the road from each other, stay safely distant. I do wear or use a mask when I run, and when I am approaching from pretty far away another runner or passing another runner, I pull my mask up and fit it over my nose. I tend to be erring on the side of great caution, I think, but I figure it's kind of the way it is right now and has been for a while. So that's how I've managed to get through, is I've just kept 1 or 2 people in my little bubble, and we're always outside, never indoors. We don't stay and socialize after or anything like that. We just run and help motivate each other, across the road, or from 10 or 12 feet apart across the bridges, that kind of thing. But that's how I've done it. And personally, I'm getting kind of tired of it. I really can't wait to, get back to the group. I do think it's going to be a little while yet, but hopefully we'll be seeing you guys in person. before too many more months go by.
Who knew when this first started, a year later, we would still be doing this?
Well, you know, I actually figured we would be. Things like this take time. They do, sadly. Yeah. So, and I think we're going to be at it for a while yet. Hopefully by summer is my hope, but we'll see. We need to get vaccines rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So more questions.
Awesome. Yeah. So if there's anything else, please feel free to put it in the chat or come off of mute for sure. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. It's so nice to be able to talk with all of you. So we hope that this has helped you as well. And we're looking forward to continuing on this series in 2 weeks.
Yeah, give us some feedback on this too, just to let us know, you know, what we did right, what you have can suggest that we might do differently. Topics coming up. Let me just sort of go quickly through where are we? Yeah, we're not quite at 8 o'clock. So we're doing these every 2 weeks because we weren't really sure, you know, how well they'd be received or what, you know, how things would go. So that was sort of our initial plan. It is possible, Sarah, we could add, you know, some more in between if we felt the need. But the next one will be 2 weeks from now, March 6th. We're going to go more in depth of the mental game and staying motivated. This is really particularly applies to marathoners, but also first time half marathoners as well. And how to keep focused on that mental game, how to stay motivated, adding variety to your runs. The later middle miles of your distance run or your race are, for me, the hardest. And I can talk, if I'm in on this one, which I hope I will be, I can talk about how to stay focused during those late middle miles. And I'm talking about in the marathon miles like 16 to 21. Those are very, very hard miles. Or in the half miles 8 to 11. How to turn a bad run. I've often had people say, I just had a really bad run. And there are ways to turn a bad run into a really good run for your mental game. Or we can always pull something positive out of a bad run. And also we're going to talk in depth about dealing with training fatigue. Training fatigue is a real thing where you get, you know, so mentally focused that you forget to rest, and your body and your mind, everything gets tired. And it's time to start talking about making sure you get enough rest. So good topics in 2 weeks. Training fatigue is really important, and so is rest. So, and then from there, the week of March 20th, setting realistic race day goals, kind of reevaluating as you go along, making sure your expectations are realistic for what you want race day to look like. We're talking about race day shoes and clothing preparation. And then a couple weeks after that, we'll get into what to expect each week of the taper as you taper down for your race. Of course, we're focusing on what would be the Pittsburgh Marathon weekend, but this can apply to any race that you're training for. And then race week preparation, what to do and be thinking about race week. Of course, being virtual is not going to be quite as essential as if we were live, but those are the topics that are coming up. If you have any suggestions for other topics, please send them to us. So Sarah, do you want to let everybody know how they can ask us questions privately? Lisa, maybe you might want to delve a little more into your injury and also how to make suggestions and comments.
Yeah. So please feel free to put any suggestions in here while we still have the chat up. And otherwise, you can email us at the info box at steelcityrrc.org. And we'll be able to take care of all of those questions through the main mailbox there. Yeah. We did get one more question in here. I think it's a really good one about, do you think that it is safe racing? Because there are some people that are doing races at the end of March up in North Park. From what I've seen of these races, they are spreading everybody out. They are staggering start lines. They have changed their hydration strategies. They are not letting people stay to socialize after the races. So I think that those that are putting races on are doing everything that they need to keep everybody safe. And there is permitting also that needs to take place to be able to put those races on. So those are very well thought out and very well planned events. So in my mind, I think that they are they're pretty safe as long as you're okay with the risk that still does come along with it, because anytime you bring people together, there's going to be some level of risk involved.
Yeah, so that is a personal level of comfort. It's just, whatever your risk comfort level is. I personally am not ready to do that, but I know a lot of people are, and I would support that. So anyway, all right, everybody. Well, let us know if you have questions, comments, suggestions. I wish I could see all your faces and say good morning and hello to all of you.
And one last thing, there are a couple of people that asked about when the window to do the race is. My guess is it's going to be over several weeks, like they did for the 10 miler last year. But we can double check and make sure that that communication comes out to everybody. So we can ask if that will come out in one of the Monday email blasts. So stay tuned for that.
I think last year when it all got shut down, and it was a few weeks later that the marathon was actually canceled. We were pretty far into training by the time that happened. But I think at that point they said it was open-ended. They just sent everybody the shirts and medals, and you ran whenever you could, even late into May, June, it didn't matter. So yeah, and EQT did have some structure to it. I believe it was the month of November, if I recall. So maybe they'll, maybe they'll make it April and May. I'm not really sure. So yeah, we'll definitely find out. That's a good question.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, who's going out running right now?
Layer up if you do.
My couch is right over there and my dog is sleeping. So, gee, let's see. What do I want to do right now? Yeah, I think the wind chill is at about 6 degrees outside, but we'll get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Let us know how you're doing. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.